Okay, my friends, I was teasing on my last video. I said, oh, I own science now. Well, what I want to do is have discussion. I'm sort of baiting people. Come on after me. And they won't. And these are supposed to be experts that can stick up for themselves. I am assailing every one of them. I say any physicist, I don't care who it is. Mikio Kaku has a big thing about, you can ask me any questions. I'm asking. I have plenty of questions. Same thing with the Fermilab. Any questions, just ask us. No, they won't talk to me. Geologists, same thing. Yale, nope, stay away from us. I gave them all my information. Then they took credit for my work a year later with a paper talking about soft-bodied, perfectly preserved creatures from a great saltwater flood. That's exactly what they said. A year after I finished all my stuff, DNA test, none of these people, as far as I'm concerned, they're either so unbelievably incompetent, or they just realize they cannot step out of their line. They step out of their line, they'll be squished. You never hear from them again. Me, I don't care. I mean, it's up to me to say what I want to say, and if people take it or leave it. But I will speak to any of them. I mean, I don't care who it is, but I'd like to speak to Mikio Kaku. He's making those statements, and he's a science celebrity. Same thing with Bill Nye. Bill Nye had a big thing just a couple days about the speed of light is consistent. It never slows down. That's how we know these things are 100 billion light years away. No, they're not. Not even close. Light slows down through all these fields. I show this so completely, it's undeniable. It's just saturated with particles in space, just like they weren't there. Had no effect on anything. Yeah, it just keeps coming. No, it doesn't. I show light slowing down. I show it speeding up. The last video had all of that stuff in spades, my friend. And if any of you experts can stand in front of me, then I will tell you whether or not you're an expert. And I'm serious about that. Because I feel right now I exceed anybody in the world in every field there is. I know. Oh, look at this guy, big shot. No, I'm not. Let's talk. That's all I want. I just want to talk. If I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. But I'm willing to talk. And I'm willing to say I don't think I'm wrong. And if you're willing to say, yes, Roger, you are wrong, and that's all they ever say. They don't say why. They don't say let's talk. They say you're an idiot, you're wrong. That's what academia has become as a dismissal system, which is fiduciary failure to their students. They are supposed to be fiduciaries. They are in 100% control of those kids. And they tell them what they have to say or they fail them. And they make them pay them, become indebted to them, and then serve them. And don't oppose them, otherwise they will make your life miserable. And they have so much control over these kids, and they are fiduciary failures. They're not doing their job. And if somebody the other day says, oh, well, you generalize about all these professors. I said, no, I don't. 100%. Zero has engaged with me over the course of 15 years. All I've had was denials, and you're an idiot, stay away from us. When I present all the evidence, and I have all the evidence, you, not a single one of you people out there that's an expert. I can know right now you're just shaking because you realize that I have shown exactly what you are, and you are no experts. I had a guy the other day, we're talking, and he said, well, you got to present all this stuff in a special way. I said, no, they want it all made like so that nobody can understand it, so they can look like they're special. I said, every single thing that I say, every single thing, a 10-year-old will understand it. If a 10-year-old doesn't understand it, I want to know why. The only ones that don't understand are PhDs. When they're perfectly happy, deluded, they don't care about anything except what they said. And that way they continue their status, their funding, and all that business. Otherwise, I understand the position they're in, but who doesn't want reality? I want reality. Of course, I can afford reality. No, I don't have to. But once it's in the general public and we can talk about it without being called idiots and being, I know people right now that are getting divorced because their wives and husbands or so, whoever it was, mostly it's wives, don't like the husbands looking into this. And that's it. I've had my own problems. I can tell you that right now. And it's a separation of powers here. Once you understand reality, and then you want to be dragged back into the ridiculous life that we live in. Total nonsense, that everything that we have been taught. And our eternity depends on this. Now, I am going to put this up as a different video. Originally, I was going to go back into the science of the light and all this stuff. But it does all play into the beginning of the universe. Let there be light. He separated the waters from above from the waters from below. There was chaos. And then the sky had intercourse with the earth. That's what the ancient texts say. And I have all of them up here right now, and we're going to be going through them. All of the different religions. They all basically say the same thing. Now, the Norse were a little bit different because they had some really tough times up there, apparently. They had 3 seasons with no summer, and that brought on devastation of an order of magnitude. It's unbelievable. Freezing and nothing to eat, and they're eating their animals, and I'm sure they had a lot of cannibalism, and they turned into a very hardcore group. And it became a way of life to just pillage and take somebody else's stuff if you could do it. And then it appears like it just kept going from there. Now, all the other religions have their own little variations, but even the Norse has the same origin. That everything was from gods and creatures. Really, these gods actually turned into planets and everything else. And then they were supposed to be watching over the people on Earth, and they turned just sex addicts. And they came down, and they had sex with all the women because they were godly DNAs mixed with a human DNA, right up through the roof. They went literally miles tall. And I could prove all of this stuff. There is no question whatsoever what I'm saying is true. And if it was looked into, it can be easily proven. And I have the DNA tests of all my stuff, which is, my guys are not that huge, but I have one that's got like a 3-foot wide hand, and another one that's got a 3-foot long fingertip. Both of them DNA tested. 100% mitochondrial human DNA. So, all of these things, I want to talk to somebody who's an expert. I don't want to just be told, no, you're not right. Or I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any. I guess if this guy, James Tour, is screaming all day long about people won't talk to him about the origin of life. I got a hold of him. I said, oh, good, we can talk. No, I'm not talking with you. I said, why not? No, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I said, you're a chemist. You're screaming that nobody will talk to you, and what you want to talk about is the origin of life. He said, well, I want to talk about the chemistry of the origin of life. I said, what do you mean chemistry? Where'd that come from? Chemistry, that's just a nonsense, little infantile argument about can we make a molecule that simulates life or not. You're not going to make a human being. And I said, I agree with you 10,000%. Never, ever going to happen. But somehow it did happen. There was some God that made it. And then, no, I won't talk to you. And we had sort of a heated, well, it got real heated. I don't like people that make all these statements and then run and hide. And that's all I have met. And it's just like I told this one person the other day, don't generalize about academia. I said, no, I'm not generalizing. I'm specifying 100%. Are frauds, in my opinion, which I can have my own opinion, and it's based on my interactions with literally all of them. I've contacted dozens and dozens and dozens and had nothing but just incompetence and fraud as far as I'm concerned. If you won't do your job to investigate something that has the kind of evidence I have, that's called suppression of valid scientific evidence, unwanted. Suppression of valid, unwanted scientific evidence. Just walking away from it. That's fraud. It's academic fraud. And so is plagiarism. I've had both of those things happen to me by academics. And at some point, I think I'm going to have to go legal with this, just to make a point that you just can't get away with it and just over and over and over and take advantage of the kids, steal their money. Basically, that's what's happening. Like I said, I'm going to make a whole different story about another video about the light and all that. And then we're going to get into all the different religions. And what was written about in a long ago past was just unbelievable. But I have evidence to show and support that there's a lot of fact, unquestionable fact, that supports the statements that were made. And Velikovsky, who was destroyed just like I have been destroyed, had all the evidence from documentation, from historical sources, everywhere in the world that said the same story. There was a huge saltwater flood, the entire world, and drowned all the creatures. And those are the things that made the mud fossils. And the reason they don't understand it, because it was a hot water flood. Nobody ever expected that. Nobody does any research, that's why. But Yale now agrees, yes. And they took credit for my work a year after I submitted everything to them, about DNA reports, CAT scans, all the chemistry, the whole 9 yards. Finally, I wrote a book a year before they published their paper saying exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures created by a great saltwater flood in the oceans worldwide in this one strata. That's a worldwide global flood. It's exactly what I told them, exactly how it happened. These are the mud fossils, and now there is no question this is true, and they have set up some place apparently to studying these. But not for me. Don't talk to me about it, because I have giants, which goes way over what they want to talk about, way beyond their ability to think. You see this right here? You want to see a giant? That is a hair follicle. That's a hair follicle. That's where the hair comes up. Oh, Roger, you can't be serious. Come on. That's a hair follicle? Yes. You want to see a hair follicle? I'm going to show you identical anatomy. All right. I told you this was a hair follicle right here. This is a hair follicle. You see that? That's called the erector pili muscle. And that allows your hair to stand up on end. You ever, and your hair stands up like that? That's because of this. Well, if this is a hair follicle, you would expect to have an attachment. Well, guess what? There it is right there. That attaches to right here. What is this? That's the hair. It comes down. What are these two little dots here? Those are the vein and artery at the bottom. The ball goes down, it comes back up, and comes up the top. And so here we have this. Now, what is this? That's a sebaceous gland. Well, this muscle is here, and the sebaceous gland should be, ooh, look, a sebaceous gland. You see it? So you have to highlight them sometimes in the shadows to see them right. And there's the hair coming out. And it's got a flat spot on one side. That means this was a curly-haired person. If they have a flat spot on one side of the hair, I didn't know that. When I posted this, a video about this, somebody said, and I said, oh yeah, that's a curly-haired person, got a flat spot. Who knew? Now that's a little bit bigger than the normal average person's hair. So I would say that was a pretty good-sized creature. Whatever it was, I don't know. But I can tell you what, there were creatures just so astronomically large, it's very, very difficult for the average human mind to accept it. It's just a little bit too much. And even this is too much for him to accept. That a goose, and his feathers and everything, the feathers and everything can turn. And that's because of the nature of this flood and of the nucleophilic substitution. We have some papers now, a friend of mine just wrote to make this a little more, scholarly or whatever you want to call it, just a whole bunch of fancy words in there to make it sound a little more academic, I guess you'd say. Like I say, I do it for the 10-year-old. And if a 10-year-old can't understand what I'm saying, I want to know why. I can tell you right now, I'm sure these PhDs can't be missing this, but they will not engage. So what does that tell me? Either they can't be that incompetent. There is nobody that's that incompetent that this is. But I'm going to tell you what happened at Yale. I did everything they asked. I said, I got stuff, this, and this. They said, no, it can't be. I said, well, what do I have to do? Oh, you'd have to have CAT scan, you'd have DNA, you'd have to this. I did it all. It all came back positive. They refused to engage. A year later, they wrote a paper saying basically what I said, only we have no idea why this stuff preserves so well. But it was everything I said they agreed with. 1 layer worldwide, salt water flood, created soft-bodied, perfectly preserved creatures. And they say it was a rapid precipitation, heavy silicates, saltwater oceans, 1 layer worldwide. What does that tell you? Basically, to me, that tells me there was a global flood, and that was written about in the ancient texts in many places, and there was several. There wasn't just one. So which one are we talking about? This Anacarta, they're calling it now, and the Anacarta area. Well, I can tell you where it is. It's right here in my backyard. Dinosaur State Park has all these dinosaur footprints in Connecticut that are in this Triassic region, which basically is this layer they're talking about. And I have a human footprint from that layer, and it is flawless. And all 3 layers were wet at the same time. So the Triassic didn't take 50 million years. It took about 2 or 3 hours after this great flood. You know what I'm talking about. It didn't take long at all. We're talking maybe a year or 2 for everything to settle down and just coat the earth with all of the remains of the creatures, which would be the flesh, which it turns into mud. The flesh turns into mud, turns into red clays. That's what it is. So there's so much they have to understand. And like I said, if they won't engage with me after the evidence I just showed you, just this, and I have so much more. If they won't engage, you know who you're dealing with. You're dealing with frauds. You're dealing with people that are nothing more than frauds. That's what they say. They say suppression of valid, unwanted information is fraud, academic fraud. Their job, I mean, seriously, think about it. Isn't their job to look into these things? But that's just not the way it works. And I don't know if there is any recourse, but there should be. And this is all written about. You want to see something? And I'm not a Bible reader at all. I never read the Bible at all. But a bunch of phrases just fell to me from people, or I don't know even how I got them. But there's one that's very, very telling, is 2 Peter 2.2. I always remember that because 222 has a special meaning to me, but it's 2 Peter 2.2. Watch this. And then when I say a special meaning, that's not a private thing that was, well, it's private. Okay, this is 2 Peter 2.2. There were also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers, professors among you. They profess. They will secretly introduce destructive heresy, even denying the sovereign Lord who bought them, which would be Jesus Christ, bringing swift destruction on themselves. Their destruction does not sleep. It's exactly what's written. And there's just tens of phrases about teachers and how they have deceived you, and they have secretly slipped in among you. And many will follow their evil teachings and shameful immorality. They don't you dare talk about God or Jesus Christ or any of that stuff in these classrooms. You might talk about it in joking and stuff like that, but don't you bring it up and say, let's discuss this as a topic. No, absolutely not. You can ridicule that kind of stuff, absolutely. That's perfectly allowed. But don't you try to talk about it in a really inquisitive way. And especially about the giants. They hate that. And I mean hate it. So it says many will follow and bring swift destruction on them. There's a whole bunch of them about how they're not good for nothing. Really, all they're doing is dictating and forcing you to do what they tell you to do. If you go for a trade, or somebody shows you how to program, or somebody teaches you how to work with electricity, or build a building, or make a driveway, or even work with plants and things like that, if you learn a skill, that's a whole different thing to being a theoretical physicist or an astrophysicist or a cosmologist or even a geologist anymore. All they do is know the names of the rocks. That's all. They have no idea. When they come up with, this took 1 million years to make this little layer of rock. No, absolutely not. Totally wrong. And they will not discuss it. That's the key. Very, very distressing that they can just continue to make these statements with us, and me specifically, having evidence that just absolutely overthrows everything they said. And I mean on every realm. So here's what I want. Like my old boss says, it ain't bragging if it's true, and I can stand up in front of anybody of any science now. Because when I found out that nobody cared about the truth, I decided I'd search everyone, and not a single one of them cares. They were big statements about how we're searching high and low for this and that. No, they're not. You come with evidence, and then you'll hear the sounds of silence, which I have heard for many, many years. So I suspect that I should be the one to become extremely vocal and say that every professor that I have seen in the theoretical realm of any of these three things is perfectly happy, deluded, and literally a fraud if they will not discuss it with me. These people are all frauds, and you should confront them if you are a student and say, I want my money back. If you won't talk to this guy, I want my money back. If I don't get my money back, I'm going to sue you. And I'm telling you, the class action lawsuit should be no problem whatsoever. Peer review has destroyed knowledge, absolutely destroyed it. And these people are bullies. I call them cow bullies. And what's a cow bully? A cow bull? A cow bully is a coward and a bully. All right? They hide and they dictate. And that's what we have got right now as our educational system. It is a disgrace. Okay, my friends, this is... I have a new set of eyes now. Once I discovered the mud fossils, I realized I need to start from scratch again, because when you find giants and you realize they're everywhere, you got to go back to who wrote about the giants. Well, it starts right from the very beginning. This is Hesiod. He wrote about them, and he had a theogony, and he's talking about the Muses, which were the daughters of Zeus. And this is not that long ago. And the almighty son of Kronos was Zeus. And anyway, there's that, and then of course there's the Bible, Genesis. They talk about in the beginning and the heavens and the earth and giants and all that stuff. And it said that the darkness was on the face of the deep, and God moved upon the face of the waters. That's the sky mating with the earth and her waters, because the other ones talk about it too. Apollodorus talks about it too. Sky was the first who ruled over the whole world. He wedded the earth and begat the first, then it goes crazy, 100-handers and cyclopses. This is the ancient Greek, and that's Apollodorus, and he talks about Typhon, to exactly identical to what he was. This is the Greek mythology. So everybody's just considered this nonsense. and I no longer consider it totally nonsense. I mean, some of it might be, but they're always talking about Zeus, the Muses, the Greek mythology. He was the first one that ruled over Earth. He was the first god of Earth. All right, and he, I believe, he was the one that was thrown to Earth with 200 other angels, or whatever you want to call them, and they had sex with all the women. Then they had the giants, and then they were literally planets. Jupiter is Zeus. Jupiter created the flood that wiped out mankind. Now, what about Norse? What do they say? This is the North creation myth. And this was very interesting. Ymir became the father of all giants. They all have basically the same story and a little bit different stuff. You know, the Quran, it has the heavens and the earth were joined together in a unit of creation. That's like they had sex together. They all say the same thing. What am I going to say? We have to look at each one of them and cut it up and parse it up and compare it, and that's what we're going to do. And Metamorphosis, Ovid with Metamorphosis is just stunning. And he's got 15 books. We could go on for a very long time with this. I'm going to try to make it as brief as I can, but you can see already this one's run quite a bit. It's not a snap of the fingers thing. I could say believe or don't believe, but why do you believe? Why? Who believed what? Do they still believe it now? Were they influenced to believe something that maybe not be correct? I don't know. I don't know what's right and what isn't right. I'm starting right from scratch again, but I do have a new set of eyes. I realize giants, dragons, and a whole lot of other stuff I'm sure was true. These creatures were turned to stone in an instant. These gods had some form of, when I say gods, there's a God Almighty who put Zeus, he must have put Kronos in control of this solar system. And Kronos was having sex with, I guess, the planets. I don't know. That's all I can take it. And he had sex with the Earth. And then it was foretold that one of his sons would overthrow him. So he ended up eating every kid. He would eat every kid. And he ate, I don't know what it was, 7 or 8 of them, something like that. And then Zeus was born. His wife, Gaia, the Earth, was outraged at all of this eating her kids. So they had, I don't know if it was Gaia that was the one. Maybe it was Hera. I can't remember. It's confusing. But he was eating all the kids. And then Revelations talks about a great dragon on the moon about to eat the baby when she was going to give birth, and she stole the baby away and hid him and gave the dragon a stone in swaddling cloth, and he ate that thinking it was the kid. And then Zeus did grow up to overtake him and kill him, and he cut his testicles off and threw him in the ocean, created a big foam. We got a lot of looking to do, and what makes sense and what doesn't. I'm sure everybody embellished it with their own little bits and means, but what is the root that everything ties in together? There's going to be this, and then there's going to be all this. I want this. I want this part. I don't want this stuff here. Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. This stuff here, if you got enough tying together, then you got something you can really talk about. So anyway, this is going to be very, very long and complicated, and I won't find it boring. You might. And maybe people aren't interested, but it's not meant to change anybody's religious beliefs, if you want to call them religious, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. It's just here to say this was what did happen. Now, was Christ sent here to say all this bad stuff happened? You don't even know it because they've hidden this from you. They've turned your mind inside out. You don't even know about the dragons. You don't even know about the monsters. At that point, they didn't know. They didn't even know there was giants. The Romans, when they invaded, I think it was Tangiers, they said they had a giant as a founding father of that city way back in the ancient days, and he was buried somewhere. and the Romans didn't believe it. They went out and dug it up, and sure enough, he was there. And I think they said he was 85 meters long, something like that. He was a pretty good-sized guy. So they, said, wow, this is real. So they didn't even know then that all this stuff was real. Now it's just laughed at. You talk about it, and people really, they don't like it at all. They get very upset when you start talking about this. And it's just a fact. I know it's a fact, and you will too. If you've talked about it to people, it is not well received. And I don't expect them to receive it immediately, but I do expect them to say, what evidence can you present? And then you present the evidence. I don't expect teachers and professors and people like that to say, you're an idiot, get away from me. So I have the evidence. It doesn't matter. You're an idiot. You're a tinfoil hat guy. You're a crazy person. And they go off being perfectly happy, deluded. And that's what we got running the university system now, all PhDs. Haven't found one that will allow reality to enter their delusion zone. They're perfectly happy. Because they're in control. There's nobody can stop them. They're like dictators now. It's just absolutely amazing. There's no controls. They're worse than Kim Jong-un. They control everything. You speak up and you're toast. It's comical, really, but it's a tragedy. It's a comical tragedy.